Hello everyone and welcome to this video. I'm International Master Rakesh Kulkarni from India, and today I will be showing you a game that involves a tremendous queen sacrifice as early as move 9. This awesome game was played at the recently concluded Asian Continental Championships in China. This game was played on the top board in round 5 of this prestigious event. So as white we have Grandmaster Alireza Firouzja of Iran, and black is Grandmaster Murali Karthikeyan from India. Both of these talented youngsters, aged 16 and 20 respectively, have already been the national champions of their countries, and this proved to be a really important game for the championships as well, as the winning player managed to win the silver medal and also a seat to the World Cup. So let's start the game. Firouzja plays white and he starts with d4. Murali continues with knight f6, and we have the traditional King's Indian defense by black. And it's a very normal King's Indian now, and instead of the regular knight f3, Firouzja opts for a slightly side variation with h3. This can involve ideas for white with bishop e3 or start with a quick attack with g4. After h3, Murali just castles. Firouzja continues with bishop e3, and here Murali plays c5. This is a very thematic pawn sacrifice for black, as takes, queen takes, rook takes, and after bishop c5, white has won a pawn, but black has knight c6, oops, not that, and black has the control of these dark squares, and this is compensation enough, as well as black has very good development advantage in this position. And this is not very well known theory, but it certainly doesn't give white any advantage. Firouzja knew all of this, so he continued with the more standard knight to f3. And here Murali plays an interesting move. He gets his queen out early in the game, and now he tries to pin the knight against the king, and here he is just threatening the simple knight takes e4. So Firouzja defends it with knight to d2, and Murali continues with c takes d4. Now if white takes bishop takes d4, this somewhat resembles a Sicilian defense where white has managed to exchange his c pawn with white's central d pawn, and here we can have the Morozzi bind against the black pawn structure, but this isn't that good for white, as after knight c6 black wins another tempo, and it certainly looks like white is the one who will come out inferior after the opening. So let's go back to the game. After c takes d4, Firouzja was counting on knight to b3 and attacking the queen as well as the pawn on d4. And in this position we have the tremendous move played by Murali Karthikeyan, and to back up, he didn't play this move at first. As per record, we have he thought for about 21 minutes in this position before he played his next move. So this just shows that it wasn't part of home preparation or any already did he know the ideas beforehand. I don't think so, but he played the next move after calculation and much thought, and it is very difficult to calculate all the lines till the end. So This was pretty much given on intuition as well as a feel for the position. Murali plays the brilliant queen takes c3 check. So white has to recapture, of course, and black captures the bishop. So now, as you can see, white has a queen for two minor pieces, and here you can see black's king is safe. Black doesn't have any obvious weaknesses. Black has a slightly better development, and but more importantly, he has a very good and compact pawn structure with no weaknesses, whereas white has many different pawn islands, and that can really cause trouble to the white pieces, as well as his bishop is blocked because of the pawns. So this is a bad bishop, and even the knight or the heavy pieces don't have any threats. So here Firouzja, after d takes e3, he had a choice of playing f takes e3, but this just shows that how bad white's position is, as all the pawns in the central files are pretty weak, and there is absolutely no target for white in this position. So Firouzja tries to play f3, which also defends the pawn, as black was threatening knight takes e4 followed by bishop takes c3. So after f3, Murali continued with knight h5. He immediately tries to target the squares that have been weakened after white's f3. Firouzja continues the attack on the e3 pawn. Murali defends it with bishop h6. White continues g4. Black jumps in with knight e3. Now if white captures the pawn, we have a knight fork attacking the queen, but the knight sacrifices itself for free, but the bishop takes the queen at the end. So Firouzja didn't go for queen takes e3. He played the normal looking king to d1. Maybe the white king is trying to hide on c2 or b2. So you're in this position. If you have a think, white had a really nice move with knight to d3. It's threatening the queen. It's also threatening a fork, forking the king and the rook. And if white recaptures, so we have a check, and king takes e2, we have bishop takes c1, rook takes c1, where the computer gives this line as better for black, but Murali was in no mood to give up his queen only to capture it back so soon. He wanted to play for a more long-lasting advantage, and he played the knight back to e6, protecting the pawn with the bishop. And as you can see, white has two rooks and a queen, like sort of three heavy pieces against black's only two heavy pieces of the rooks, but white's queen is quite ineffective here, as there are absolutely no targets or weaknesses in black's camp. So let's continue. Firouzja tries to safeguard his king on the queen side. Murali continues his development, and maybe the knight's heading to e5. Sorry, not the pawn. The knight is heading to e5, where it can target the weak pawns, and there is no pawn or piece that can challenge the two knights in the center. So Firouzja goes for h4 with the idea of g5. Murali is having none of it. He drops his bishop to f4. Maybe the bishop can come to e5 later on, or just he has also renewed the threat of e2 because the knight protects the bishop now. So Firo comes out of the discovered attack with queen d1. Now Murali plays knight to e5. Probably he's going to get his bishop out, get the rook, whoops, to the open half open c file, target these two pawns. And as you can see, again, white has absolutely no target or no plan to play with. In fact, after knight c1, if you just let's play black's move. Black plays bishop g7. Black is not threatening bishop a4, but yeah, it's always a move that should be considered. But as bishop a4 can be blocked by knight to b3, but probably he's stopping white from playing knight e2, as the queen would hang after bishop a4 check. So in exactly this position, let's say Firouzja had played king to b1, it's like white is playing Fischer chess with the Fischer Random Championship that we have, the ongoing qualifiers for the Fischer Random World Championship that we have on chess.com. But Firouzja tries to avoid all this, the bishop a4 idea, and he plays his pawn to a4. But now this limits the rook, as the rook is tied down to the defense of the a pawn. Firouzja had probably some plans to play knight d3 or knight e2, trying to eliminate at least one of the pieces so that his other pieces have some breathing space or some other ideas. Murali continues with rook c8, just simple chess. Probably he's gonna just attack the weak pawns, maybe double his rooks on the c file, and again you can see that black's king is absolutely safe. Black king has no checks, has no threats whatsoever. So Firouzja continues with knight to e2, begging for an exchange. Murali blatantly refuses, and probably he's going to reroute his bishop to the long diagonal again, which has more weaknesses. White tries to cramp in, or maybe he wants to open some files against the black king. And I think he should have probably gone with h5, hg6, trying something, but black was ready to capture the f file and open this file for his rook. So after bishop g7, bishop h3, the knight is not threatened, but maybe just some threats along the h3 c8 diagonal. Black captures the pawn on f3, and in turn he's planning to give up the e3 pawn, but this has really opened lines against the white king on c2. So after queen d3, Murali drops back with the knight on e5, attacking the queen and the pawn. Takes, queen f2, and now Murali has already eliminated one pawn. And if you just always keep an eye on the material balance, as now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns for white, whereas black has 7 pawns. So it's already 2 pieces and 2 pawns for the queen. So even in terms of points that we learn in childhood, it's like 3 plus 3 for the pieces, so 6, and 2 pawns, that's 8 points against the 9 points for the queen. But again, this weak position of the king, the activity of the pieces, ensures that Murali has a great compensation against his tremendous idea of sacrificing the queen. So queen f2, Murali plays the active rook c5. He's probably threatening to double here. He can also use the rook along the 5th rank to target some other weaknesses. Firouzja continues with rook b1. He wants to activate his rook along the 7th. Murali plays a nice move. He defends the pawn and also is threatening to capture on e4. This threat has to be defended by white, so he plays bishop back to f2. And here Murali plays a great move. He plays f5, which helps his last piece. If you can see in this position, only the f8 rook of black is not taking part in the game. Apart from this, all his pieces are really active and doing something worthwhile, except the rook on f8. With his last move of f5, black has plans to open the f file. He can also maybe push the pawn to f4 and create some more weaknesses. He's threatening to play f takes e4, and Firouzja had no option but to capture on f6. Murali played bishop to f6. Now we have a discovered attack, of the rook against the white queen, and maybe Murali's threat is just to capture bishop takes c3. At this point, after having suffered for almost 20 moves where Murali had two pieces against his queen, Firouzja kinda gave up, or he was desperate for some active play or some counterplay, and he played the move rook to f1. And I don't think that Firouzja missed black's move, which is pretty obvious, but it was just more out of desperation or frustration probably. So Murali captures bishop takes c3. Mind you, now that's the third pawn which black has captured. So, but now he's gonna white has to probably give up his queen, because black is threatening two things: rook takes f2 and bishop takes a1. So Firouzja tries to liquidate into an endgame where black doesn't have his rooks. So queen c5, knight takes c5, rook takes f8, king takes f8, and king takes c3. So if you keep an eye on the material balance, so it's like knight for a knight, bishop for a bishop, and 3 pawns for white, whereas 6 pawns for black. So it's 3 pawns and this knight against the white rook. So materially, I think white is now behind, and black has a great position, and he just doesn't let go of the control of the position and manages to bring home the point. So let's see how Murali continued the game. Brings the knight to e5. If you observe keenly, these two squares for the knight were really important, and they were very strong because white didn't have any pawn on f4 or b4. These two knights, these two outposts for the knight were very effective, and probably proved to be the very reason that white couldn't manage to do anything against them. So knight comes back to e5. Firouzja protects the pawn, otherwise he would have been a 4th pawn down with a5. But here already black was threatening 2 pawns, and it was time. So again, if you count by the point system, black has now a knight and 4 pawns, so that's like 3 points for the knight plus 4 pawns, so that's a total of 7 pawns against rook. So now the advantage is probably decisive, and Firouzja just plays some moves before he resigns, but it's just that he was probably frustrated before for the entire match. He had some chances to play a6 here. If black captures, then maybe rook a6 and rook a7, or if after a6 black plays b6. Now this pawn can be weak in some variations like knight d4, knight b5, knight a7, but I think still black has got it pretty much covered. Let's come back. So he played knight to d4. So white has no obvious idea except a couple of checks, but he has to worry about these two central pass pawns that are going to be the telling difference at the end. After knight d4, Murali just safeguards his weaknesses against the king, just controls the checking square. Knight b5, attacking the pawn. a6, knight c7, attacks the bishop. Watch out for the knight moves that are backwards, because we always generally think about the knight coming forwards, but the knight is a very tricky piece, as you will see in the next couple of moves. So after bishop c6, Firouzja finally managed to move his rook. So I think this was the first time where white touched this rook, and it's already moved 36 where white played the rook for the first time. King to g7, and here Firouzja played knight to e6, again a knight move that's coming back. So here is a very important moment. Of course, you have already seen that black might go or will go king h6, but it is always important to be alert and not play moves like king, or alert till the end. Like Bobby Fischer said, you should never you should never be lazy, or the game, or Bobby Fischer said the game isn't over until the score sheets have been signed. So this is a prime example of that, because if you had played king to g8, it's just mate in one move, as the black king has no squares to go to. So it's very important that you stay focused till the end. So after knight e6 check, Murali goes in. Probably he's going to capture a fifth pawn, but let's see what he does. Firouzja comes in with his rook. Again, you can see the rook has entered, but he has no possible targets, because the rook cannot come here, because if the bishop is controlling, cannot attack this pawn. Again, the bishop is there, whereas white has no other weaknesses, but black can just go and capture this pawn, promote these two pawns, as you can see what he did in the game. King to h5, attacking the h4 pawn. Rook h8, Murali captured the pawn. No, he played h6 first, trying to, maybe he's going to play knight to g4, protecting the pawn, and then capture this for free. Rook h7 threatens the pawn on e7. So Murali captures the pawn, and your black has two sets of connected pass pawns, either on the king side or on the center. Firouzja captures the h6 pawn, king g4, and you can see that again, even the white king is not taking part actively, but black's king has made a telling difference, and each of black's pieces have played better than their counterparts throughout the game. So let's continue. Let's wrap up and see how did Murali convert this huge advantage that he has. So king g5, rook h2, bishop d5, again just safeguarding against these checks. And you can see the two pieces of blacks are in the center, and they control far too many squares. The knight is like also known as an octopus, because of the fact that he controls 8 squares from a central square, and the bishop or even any piece is very strong from the center. So rook f2, rook e2, king f4. Maybe now he's just gonna roll his g pawn down the board and get himself a new queen. Rook f2 check, knight to f3. Again, if you take, I just take, and whereas I just push my pawn. Firouzja comes back with the rook, but I don't think Murali is going to take this. He can just start pushing his e pawn now. So he plays e5, knight goes back to c2, and Murali follows his principles, like always. He now follows the last principle, like a principle in the endgame. He followed the one where they say king must be used as a piece in the endgame, and now he follows another principle that says passed pawns should be pushed with e5. So after knight c2, bishop e4, now he's threatening to push his other passed pawns. He's spoiled for choice here. So knight e3, d4, passed pawns should be pushed. King b4, probably white is trying something, but it's just too late and it's over. So after knight d4, white is threatened with knight e2, and he can't move the rook because the king captures on e3. After rook f1, Murali used his king as a threat. After king f2, he's going to threaten the rook and the knight, and sadly the knight can't move because of knight c2 check that forks the rook and the king. But after king to f3, white resigned, and this was a fabulous game played by Murali, and I'm sure it will be nominated as game of the year, and not sure if it will win, but it is a sure contender, like at least among the top 5, the top 3 personally for me at least. So this was a tremendous game, and this also helped Murali to win the silver medal at the championships, and also he qualifies for the World Cup to be held in Russia in September. And as for the game, let's back up to this moment where Murali gave up his queen. So yeah, in this position, as you can see, queen takes c3 wasn't the top choice for many of us, or even the engine's top choice, but it just shows that you have to play against the pieces. The material counts, but only if it's active. And as you can see, after the capture, each of black's pieces, even the king at the end, proved to be much more active and much more useful or worthwhile than the white's counterparts. This game was probably inspired, or Murali was inspired by the queen sacrifice after seeing the games, maybe Nesmedinov versus Chernikov that was played earlier, where again white Nesmedinov was white, he gave up his queen for 2 minors, and even Kramnik versus Kasparov was a similar idea, but all of those happened on move 12, but whereas this idea was as early as move 9, and this is definitely my game of, like, my best game for 2019. And let me know what do you guys think, or what are your nominations for the best game of the year for 2019. So an amazing game, a real pleasure. So all right, so this is International Master Rakesh Kulkarni signing off, and I'll be sure to update you with many such games later on. Bye.